what do you define as education? Everything we're exposed to is always influencing the way we're perceiving the world. So in a sense, being mindful, at least being mindful to what you're presenting in your game, and actively choosing and knowing what are those messages, that's like a very baseline, I think, thing that would be great.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Niva Kay. Niva is the co-founder of Pakaraka Permaculture, documentary filmmaker at the Rebel Film Collective, and creator of the upcoming Regenerate GameJam happening virtually across Aotearoa and globally. Today, we'll be talking about the mission behind the GameJam of developing games with attention to regenerative farming, how games educate us whether we want them to or not, and her perspective on games as a medium compared to film. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. All right. Thank you, Niva, for joining me. Really appreciate having you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So I first found out about you when you came into my view wanting to create a game jam called Regenerate, and you had a very clear mission from that first moment. I heard about the project, and I've loved seeing it develop over the last few months. And it's happening in less than a month's time now. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast, just because it's a new game jam that's going to be here in Aotearoa, and there'll be some really exciting projects that will come out from it, I'm sure. And who knows what the future holds of those projects that do get highlighted and celebrated. So I guess the first question I want to ask is just, do you mind explaining what is Regenerate and what you hope to kind of accomplish with this game jam happening?
Yeah. So Regenerate Game Jam, it's in a sense it's a traditional game jam. It's happening over a weekend, and teams come together and make a game, or like a prototype of a game. But the thing with Regenerate Game Jam is that the game has to feature organic or regenerative farming practices, and there's various reasons for that. Partially just to have better farms in games, and also to just get us all like to change what's normal. So if we normalize things that we think are better for the future, then as a society we just accept that, yeah, this is how we grow things. We grow them in regenerative ways, but also because of the amazing imagination and creativity that comes with game making, and what having that lens on farming can bring. So it's really a cross pollination between those two sort of things.
I want to talk about your career so far, and the kind of experience you have in storytelling and filmmaking, which we'll get to a bit later on. But for now, just to continue on the kind of Regenerate path, what kind of projects? Well, you kind of touched on already, but like if someone listening to this is planning on entering, could you give a bit more details as to like what you'll be, or what the judging process will be like, and what you're kind of looking for to kind of have as that first place winner that you want to highlight for this?
So really we're doing community ranking. So everyone that participate in the jam, at the end of the jam submissions, the deadline for submissions is 6 p.m. on the Sunday. And then everybody's going to hit that itch.io page, play all the games, rank all the games, and by 11 we want to be able to say who won.
Wow.
I mean, fingers crossed it works, but trying to really contain it within that weekend. So it's community ranking, and you do get ranked based on basic things like your gameplay, your audio, graphic, but also how well you've used the theme and how likely your game is to have impact.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the criteria, and then there'll be an overall. Each IO has actually a system to do the overall based on that.
That's awesome.
And we did go for community ranking because really I really believe in the power of collectives to decide together. It's really
I love
fun.
that. Yeah, that's a good mindset to have. Has itch.io been a good platform? Did you know about itch.io before you went down the path of developing the game jam? I'd love to know like your thoughts on itch.io as a platform.
So before I decided to run a game jam. I've been participating in quite a few game jams and have always done it on HIO. Maybe one of them ran on Slack, which felt really weird. Uh, yeah, so I really like actually the interface they have available. It's very easy to set up a game jam on
Mhm.
each IO, and it's really flexible. It's just really cool. Like it's anyone can just come up and very easily have the tools to set it up, to set up the ranking systems, to have email correspondence with people that sign up. So yeah, my experience has been great, and as a participant as well, I really liked when I've made submissions, the ability to personalize the whole page, and um, because it's not just the game, it's everything around it that you can do.
Mhm.
So I like it, especially as a platform for game jams, but also occasionally for finding the odd indie games. Like you can find anything there, really.
Yeah, yeah. No, they've done a great job of just carving out a corner of the industry that was kind of um uh that people would just kind of find their own solutions, but this seems like a really great solution that people wanting to
Yeah.
kickstart their own projects can go to. Talking about the prizes and the mentors, do you mind running through like what the prizes are, how many prizes there are, and how the mentors play a part in the whole process?
Yeah. So the prizes, I think I'd say I'm hoping that this is not the definite list, but what we have so far is we have vouchers to Kune, which is a platform developed by I think a trust from South Auckland, and it's featuring a lot of Maori and Pacifica owned businesses, and like Aotearoa made products. So what we love about that is that you with that money that people are winning, it's actually going to support local, small, and also hitting our wanting to support Maori and Pacifica entrepreneurs. So that's pretty cool, and
Awesome.
particularly I've highlighted on our page that they have these awesome, just the basic your basic card deck, but a Maori version of it, which I
Awesome.
think is really awesome. So we have free. So first place, second place, and third place will have vouchers, and
Mhm.
then also copies to the book that actually my partner and I wrote, called The Abandoned Garden, which is a practical guide to regenerative home gardening. This came out last April last year. It's been like a
Awesome.
best-selling gardening book, so hopefully people will enjoy that.
Sounds
And
like a
yeah,
great resource for people to read before the game jam to really
uh,
get in your head to understand. Which is, yeah, it's awesome. But it's awesome that people are getting a copy as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's actually been, it wasn't. I haven't thought about it, but my co-organizer Carrie has was like, why don't we give them the book? It's like, oh, of course we can do that.
That's awesome. And then the mentors, how do they? Because there's a great list of talented developers and studio owners in New Zealand that
Hmm.
have put their name forward. How do the mentors play a part in the
Yeah.
process?
So I guess one of the reasons I really wanted to have great mentors is because, again, I've participated in a few game jams, and my experience was that in game jams where there were mentors, just the experience and the results were so much better, and even just like hitting that submission deadline, it becomes so much more likely. So so our mentors, we have a few different types of mentors. We have team mentors. So those are mentors that are assigned to a team and will support the team throughout the weekend, just encouraging them, making sure things are on track, helping where they can, or just going, oh, you know what, maybe I'll get this other person who knows about this to you, or whatever. And then we have dropping mentors. These are people who are coming sometimes for a few hours or a whole day, or some of them are actually going to be there most of the time but are not assigned to a team, and they'll just be able to address, like, to help with things that are within their skill set, essentially.
Hmm.
And then we have experts, which are some regenerative organic farmers. We also have Claire Wild from Akina Foundation, who's an impact expert, also has a degree in environmental engineering, so has some of that core sort of regenerative understanding, but also that side of impact and how to take your project, say that you are making a game and you think it's awesome, how do I take that and build a strategy for it to have an impact, have a wider reach and influence in the world. So that's pretty cool as well.
Amazing. Wow. So I would love to just give you a few more minutes to just really explain the value behind regenerative farms, and just to help educate me and the people listening as to the true value. And I'm sure through the games, people will develop game mechanics that will help communicate that and help tell those stories and teach people how to create better farms. But just coming from you, I'd love to know what your kind of like principles are, maybe how you go about your daily life, or how you hope to operate one day. Like, what's an ideal view of you managing your own farm, or your own resources that you're consuming?
Yeah, so I guess the main difference, the word regenerative, it often specifically means it kind of refers to soil, building good soil,
Mhm.
but in a broader sort of way of thinking about it, we can grow food and basically lose soil, create pollution, all of that sort of stuff, harm, like basically devastate the entire insect biodiversity, or we can actually grow food that build soil and healthy biological system underground, increase biodiversity in our surrounding, basically capture carbon from the atmosphere and help,
Mhm.
put it into soil. So as a sort of general understanding for us, and that's always what we have been doing, is thinking, how can we do this that it's, contributing, that we're providing ecological services rather than using and actually destroying ecological services. And with climate change being the biggest crisis pretty much that we're facing, this has been absolutely confirmed by a recent UN report that put it far above, coronavirus, which is a major crisis. But and then also biodiversity loss, huge issue that we're all facing. Of course, pollution in the environment. Basically, we're stretching our planetary boundaries so badly, and we gotta start changing that. And everyone eats, everyone needs food, so it's not a matter of like, can we just stop growing food? We can't. We're gonna keep growing food, but we need to do it in ways that take into account our planetary boundaries. And am I rambling? I'm not sure if
No,
I'm
no, that's
rambling.
good. I mean, it's definitely, it's an area that I can tell you're really passionate about, that you have a lot of experience and knowledge in. My follow-up question was going to be how can someone, like the average person, that maybe goes to do their shopping at a supermarket every week, how can they make changes in their life that could help with this overall mission?
I guess there's two ways to answer this question, and the first one is to know that what we need is systematic changes, more than what any individual is able to do on their own. But the flip side of that is, of course, systematic changes happen when there's also a population support for it. So I guess if you go, I mean, if you can buy from local farmers and people or at least buy locally grown, that's already huge. If you can buy organic, buy regenerative, all of those stuff. I guess those are sort of the basic stuff. It's hard, of course. Not everyone like. Sometimes you just need to buy the cheapest thing that's available, and that's part of why we need systematic change. We need ways to help farmers transition into better practices. You know, we need to make sure food is accessible and available for everyone, but wouldn't it be better that the food that is accessible to everyone is also not ruining our planet,
Mm-hmm.
essentially?
Totally. That's a really, yeah, it's a really important, and I love that you're trying to find solutions to bring attention to this. And I guess I'd love to know what your experiences in, like, maybe you could speak on previous game jams that you've done, or your view of games as a medium, and why you were drawn to want to create interactive media around this mission. There's probably a million different avenues you could have
Yeah.
pursued, but you've dedicated, this last year to really building this out. I'd love to know, like, how, like, why you believe in games and what you see as the power behind them.
Um, yeah, I guess I personally I love fiction a lot, and I think that one of the people that I really has inspired me in the ability to think, even if things are bad, they can change. It's Ursula Le Guin,
Hmm.
who's a sci-fi writer, and that ability to imagine new things. So, and I guess I enjoy games, and and um, um, so why do this in a game? I guess it's gonna be fun. No,
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's what I love most
we
about games.
firstly, we need all the things. So I obviously I also have a garden. I also make films. We also have education, and also why not games? Like sometimes it's because of the games I played or my kids played, where I'm like, are they just spreading shit? They're like, what's happening in this game?
Yeah, yeah.
um, because of that sort of normalization aspect, where what we see, what we experience, and what we experience in games is also part of our experience,
Hmm.
and the messaging of what is. Um, so it's just one place to have that thinking, but also just there's so many creative, amazing creative people, and I think when you look at our mentor lineup, it's just like amazing people um, that and especially in games where you've got rules and you've got systems and you have to think about those stuff, and actually in an ecosystem, so a game is kind of an ecosystem where you do have that understanding of like things need to be feasible, and loops need to make sense. So it's actually a great place to check it out, to try it out, and to think about it creatively. And one of the things, so I've created a big resource channel for participants to look into different aspects relating to organic and regenerative, and I've included the donut economy in it, which is I guess a new, it's obviously modeled around indigenous knowledge and all of those things, but also has been created as a new model of thinking about economy within planetary boundaries. So we don't push out of our planetary boundaries. It looks like a donut because the inside you wanna not lose people,
Hmm.
and outside you wanna not try overshoot. We already are overshooting. And wouldn't it be cool if economic systems in games actually took into account something like the donut economy? It's so applicable.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
I
love,
think.
because the whole nature of games is you're building a world, or you're building an environment that you want the player to get immersed in, and that's such a great idea to combine these principles that will help civilization mature. I was trying to think if like Minecraft has a farming system, and if their farming system is good enough, and if there might be, if they did, and if it didn't, say it was just sprinkling seeds and then it
Mm-hmm.
just pops up, and then you get twice as many seeds back when you harvest it, or something simple like that. If there is a better way that games like Minecraft, which is arguably one of the biggest games in the
Huge.
world,
Yeah.
could educate the kids that are playing them to learn more about how you can
So
learn game
there's
mechanics.
one thing in Minecraft that I like is actually was pointed out to me by our designer Scott, and then I checked it out with my kids. Is that when you cut a tree, you can plant a sapling in between instead. So there is the idea of like, okay, trees are not endless,
Awesome. Yeah, yeah.
but there's also room for improvements, of course.
Yeah. No, it's a great discussion actually, and something I've never thought of is game mechanics in regards to environmental like best practices that I think every game that is building a world, I'm sure I'm making these micro decisions that are either understanding or not understanding of how we can operate in the world better. So I absolutely love that thought, and I love that you not only you're exploring the space, but you're bringing people together to talk about this more, which makes me really excited to see what comes out of the weekend game jam. So um, talking a bit more about your past, I'd love to know, just because I love talking about games as a medium, and you have experience producing films in this space as well. And I'd love to know what your comparisons are between telling a story through film and what an ideal kind of game. Maybe if you choose one of your films and you think of that in the context of a game, like what the difference in experience is between the two mediums. I'd love to know your take on that.
I guess one of the main attractions in games is the ability to have branching narratives.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't always choose for the viewers, for the player in this case, what's the line to follow,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty exciting. Like writing for games, which I haven't done like professionally, but as in the capacity that I've participated,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, I can choose that this character is gonna have a wholesome conversation, or is gonna pull a knife on someone, is gonna, there's so many options, and you don't have to decide. Like the player can decide, and you can do it this way and one time that way. And um, when I was little, we had those choose your own adventure books. I still love those.
Yeah, yeah.
So so that's obviously a big appeal. It's just that agency and
Mm-hmm.
participation, and the ability to just offer, like, because um, obviously lots, like, different people enjoy different things,
Mm-hmm.
and then in a film you kind of wanna, to an extent, you do have to sort of aim to what generally enough people are choosing to,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to the very edges, you're not gonna have enough audience. But in a
Mm-hmm.
game, you can include that edge there, just
Yeah.
for those people as well.
Yeah, yeah. You can put your worst takes and most extreme ways of living to the corner of people that are curious enough to kind of to go down and learn the intricacies. That is interesting. Um, I uh I had an interesting question. Oh yeah, so obviously the game jam, you hope to educate people on better farming practices, and a topic that I enjoy talking about on the podcast is games for education and teaching people through player agency, like you mentioned. And I just wanted to know your thoughts just broadly about creating games to educate people, and where you kind of stand on that line, how easy you think it is to educate people through a game, and if it can be fun. Like, what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that
that's
topic?
the thing. Like, if it's not fun, then it's, and I can see that heaps with, again, with my kids. So actually, um, for example, they play Prodigy, which is a math. It is actually an educational game for math,
Mm-hmm.
but they love it. They've been playing it for years now,
Yeah.
because it's really fun. Like, they did a good job. But oh, the amount of educational games we've looked at that were like, just, if you can't just push right the information, it's got to be fun. But if it's fun, then, I mean, the world is always trying to, influence us. In You're watching a movie, there's an agenda there. You're watching the news, there's an agenda. You're obviously, advertising is all around us. All of these things are always educating us. So it's kind of also like, what do you define as education? Everything we're exposed to is always influencing the way we're perceiving the world. So, in a sense, being mindful, at least being mindful to what you're presenting in your game, and actively choosing and knowing what are those messages, that's like a very baseline, I think, thing that would be great if
Mm.
games had. And then, of course, if you wanna kind of include bits of information in it, one of our favorite board games, I love board games as well, is Wingspan, and it's just a fun. It's a strategy game, and you have to place these birds in all these different habitats, and but also it's just small, like on the cards they've included their territory and a little bit about each bird, and it's not aggressive, but yeah, I've learned a lot about birds,
Yeah,
playing Wingspan. So
yeah,
I
that's
do
amazing.
enjoy a well-researched and well-presented information in a game, as long as
Yeah.
it's not boring.
Totally, yeah, and that you touched on a lot of great points. I think the whole research part is really important, and where a lot of game developers might be lazy, and that's where good research can make a deeper impact on your game. And one of my biggest takeaways from what you just said was, well, what I took away was even games that are built to be a distraction or fun or to just be something to take up
Entertainment,
your
yeah,
time, they're still educating you
always.
in some way. There's always something that the game is teaching you, regardless of if you want to or not. That's the nature of games, as people immerse themselves in an environment and then learn how to cheat the system, learn how to play the game and get better. And you have to develop the game to become more challenging as you progress. And you outline exactly what those challenges are and how you overcome them. So that is really fascinating and a great argument, I think, to just the wider games industry to put more effort into your research, talk to professionals and experts in different areas that you are developing for, and you might be surprised what creating a system that's both fun and is educational is I think the golden tick that you want to achieve. So yeah, it's such a fascinating thing, and I love how you're going about it, because I've spoken to people in the past about games for education, but their passion is education. And I get that from you, but I also feel that having games that are fun and games that can fit into your lifestyle and something that you can play with your kids, for example, is really important to you. And I love that, and that makes me even more excited for what kind of projects, what kind of teams will be participating in Regenerate, because I think everyone cares about leaving the world a better place than what we came here for, came here, how we came here. And I think you're laying the boundaries to helping people go down that path if they're passionate about game development through the game jam, without putting too many restrictions on what they need to like educate the player on, or what they need to explain. You're keeping it broad enough, but with a clear mission that I think will inspire a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the goal. And honestly, like, who knows what kind of games are gonna come out? Hey, I'm really curious to see, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's that's sort of the fun thing about doing a game jam is it's not just me trying to figure out like one amazing idea that's gonna be the perfect game to convey everything. It's just like, let's bring lots of people together and see what happens, and yeah, that element of just diversity and yeah,
I
it's
love
it's
it.
really exciting.
Um, so after so it's February. When what
So
weekend's the
the
game
game
jam?
jam is 18th to 20th of February.
18th of 20th to February. So on February 21st, once, or maybe not the day after, but let's say a month later, once the winners have been crowned, the prizes have been given out. What's your hope for these projects, or do you have a vision for what is to come next for these projects, or for Regenerate as a whole? I'd love to
You're
know.
basically asking me about my impact strategy. Um,
We can frame it like that.
yeah, yeah. So I guess obviously, I mean, one of the hopes would be that some group will make such a great game that they say we're gonna keep developing it, and looking at some of the participants we have. I mean, there's people with a lot of skill and a lot of experience also coming to participate. So we've got the full range, and we're gonna have. I'm quite hopeful we're gonna have from sort of senior high school students, but we do have participants really at every age. at every age and skill level. So it's for everyone. So looking at what comes out of it, I do hope that, you know, some games would be like, people would be inspired to keep working on them and putting them out into the world. I also think that just having this conversation, you know, within our game development ecosystem means that, you know, next time that you're working on a game and it's got some food growing, and lots of games do, because if it's resource management, if it's survival, like food is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You might go, hey, but let's interplant those veggies, or hey, but let's make sure there's something for the like a lot of the people, a lot of our mentors are obviously leading people in the industry, and we just having that conversations mean that it might come up, and it might make a difference in another game that's not necessarily directly a result of the game jam.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cool thing as well. um, yeah, I definitely am looking forward to playing those games and thinking about what what themes came up and what worked and what maybe didn't. And um, yeah, yeah, I don't know. There's so much, and
Yeah.
it's part of that. For me, it's like seeds, right? It's like we're seeding this thing,
Yeah, you don't if you could guess what the outcome would be, you'd go straight to it. But
right?
you know, that's just like you can't guess what kind of games are going to be coming out from the weekend. It's hard to know how those games might change the conversation later on. So perfect. That's a perfectly you know uh, perfectly fine answer, knowing, you know, that game jams are these like little lightning bolts of energy that you have no idea how they're going to happen,
Yeah.
how it's going to come out. So um the Abundant Garden, you said was released last year and was successful, and you've developed films as well. Are you planning on either pursuing another book in the future, or planning on releasing any new films? Is that
Um,
anything on the cards?
well, in terms of books, maybe. For our education center, what we have a lot now is online courses. So I'm gonna be filming our home gardening home online course, and kind of focusing on filming and editing and producing that. In terms of like other films, yeah, I'm always thinking about films, and um, have all sorts of ideas, but nothing that I can
Mm-hmm.
spit out. And also, I'm thinking about games, but you know, that's a huge project, so
Yeah.
nice and slowly.
No, exciting.
Yeah.
I would love to know, you mentioned, and I butchered the name, but I'm going to try and find it. But you mentioned Ursula Le Guin,
Mm-hmm.
earlier. And I'd love to know if you have any other mentors in the space for people that are maybe listening that want to do more research, you know, other than looking into your book, The Abundant Garden, or looking at things online. Are there any other people that you'd like to showcase that are great resources in this industry, in this space with the same mission?
Do you mean like in regenerative
Yeah,
farming?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's heaps of amazing people out there. So I'm sure that if I try to save everyone out, I'm gonna do a misjustice, and I'm gonna feel awful.
yeah. Well,
But
people can reach out to you. People can reach out to you
yeah,
if they're interested.
and people that are gonna join the game jam, I compiled like this massive list of resources and videos and little films, and there's amazing people obviously all over the world, um, and here in Aotearoa doing great stuff. Whether it's on their own farms, whether they're educating, whether they're looking at policy, and just changing the food system, all of those things. Brilliant
Mhm.
people everywhere, really.
Yeah, no, it's for people that want to get involved. So if people want to get tickets, I'm going to be linking the Humanitics
Hmm.
below. It's free
Yeah,
to enter.
yeah.
And you get access to all these, you know, mentors, experts, resources, if this is a space that you are interested in. I'll also put the itch.io page down below as well. I love the branding, by the way, it's spot on. Um, and I'm sure you can reach out to Niva there if you've got any questions. Um, I I just wanted to check if I had any other questions that I wanted to touch on. Um, but I think you covered it really well. So it's free to enter. Are people outside of New Zealand able to enter as well?
So people outside of New Zealand are able to enter, but our Kune vouchers and the books, we're only going to be able to send that within New Zealand.
Okay.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so they can participate, but they won't be eligible for the prizes. But who
right.
knows?
They
There
can
might
still
be.
win, but they won't get the prize.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So it is available globally. It's all being held like virtually, and the games will be posted on itch.io. Are the games able to be played by anyone globally?
Yeah, yeah. So the games there will all be linked to the submission page, so it would be easy to find them.
Awesome. So
Um, I mean, depending on what kind of builds people put up, but yeah.
yeah, totally. So if you're listening to this podcast, in 6 months' time, if you go to the itch.io link in the description, you may find a slew of really, really awesome games, like prototypes about regenerative farming, and get to explore all these different ideas that people came up with. So that's such an awesome vision, and I love that, and I can't wait to see how it kind of develops over the next few months and few years, and see where these little seeds get planted around New Zealand, and how they grow. So thank you so much, Niva, for talking to me today, sharing your mission, educating me a bit on regenerative farming, and I can definitely do a lot of research into that, and I think make changes as well in my daily lifestyle that can help move towards that mission. So I'm gonna try to do some research and see what areas I can improve. But thank you so much for pursuing a mission like this, and doing your part to make the world a better place, and changing these systematic problems that are affecting climate change and things like that. So just before we leave, is there any kind of final piece of advice that you'd like to say to the main audience of the podcast are game developers, like maybe indie developers, or developers working at studios? What advice you'd give to them for their journey in game development, as they continue to learn and to develop games?
Um, I guess the thing that as I said, like it's research, and when you're making decisions about the world you're building, those decisions matter because you're presenting a certain world. Don't think it's obvious that food is always grown with tractors, or of course that women don't have internal organs for that matter. Uh, question and do some research and think about what are the messages. It doesn't matter if your game is just like shooting zombies. There's always messaging that you're creating when you're building the world. So can you create a world that's sending good messages? Why not,
Love it. Yep, perfect. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best for the weekend of Regenerate. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. You can follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, or any other podcasting service. Other than that, you can find links to this episode down in the description below, and I'll see you guys next week for the next episode.